Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture. We're getting literary today. We're taking a look at a book called The Man Who Was Thursday, written in 1908 by G.K. Chesterton. Hell of a writer, worth reading his material. And this is a really interesting fiction book that he wrote, and it is kind of weird. Now, I first discovered it on Project Gutenberg. I don't know if I'd been searching for Chesterton or if it had just happened to come up as one that was recently added, but the title intrigued me. The Man Who Was Thursday. What the hell does that mean? So I cracked it open. It was not at all what I was expecting, if I was expecting anything. Some really fun twists in it. It is funny. There's action, little bit of mystery in it. It's really quite a book. So I figured we could go through just a tiny bit of the plot. I'll give you a few samples of the writing so you can see how G.K. Chesterton wrote. And maybe you'll want to check this one out yourself. Like I said, I found it on Project Gutenberg, so you can get it for free. You can find free audio versions of it on YouTube. Or, of course, you can go out and buy one, or maybe, get like a first edition like this one and pay probably quite a bit of money. All right. The story of The Man Who Was Thursday involves a character named Gabriel Syme. Now, we begin the book with Syme confronting an anarchist named Gregory at a sort of a little gathering, a gathering of mostly young middle-class women who want to listen to what the anarchist has to say. Already kind of rings a bell, right, to sort of more modern day movements of that sort, revolutionary, what have you. Anarchists were kind of a topical issue in 1908. In 1901, President McKinley was assassinated by an anarchist. Before him, it was Umberto I of Italy. Elizabeth, Empress of Austria, was stabbed by an anarchist. And anarchist Emile Henry detonated a bomb in the Café Terminus in 1894. Point is, they were in the news, and therefore they were in the pop culture. Now, this book is somewhat an examination of anarchists, but from a slightly more tongue-in-cheek approach, but it also spins into a much, much bigger story. So he attends this thing, gets into an argument with Gregory about this sort of thing. Gregory, anarchy and all this. It's about art. It's about, emotion, etc. Syme is a weird guy. He finds beauty and truth in train schedules. But it turns out that he's much more than just this wandering poet getting into arguments with anarchists. As we find a couple chapters later, we get a little insight into how he became a detective for Scotland Yard. Not really just a detective or a policeman, but a philosophical policeman. Here is a bit from the book when he is first introduced to this idea by a policeman, seemingly just a normal policeman on the beat. "The work of the philosophical policeman," replied the man in blue, "is at once bolder and more subtle than that of the ordinary detective. The ordinary detective goes to pothouses to arrest thieves. We go to artistic tea parties to detect pessimists. The ordinary detective discovers from a ledger or a diary that a crime has been committed. We discover from a book of sonnets that a crime will be committed. We have to trace the origin of those dreadful thoughts that drive men on at last to intellectual fanaticism and intellectual crime. We were only just in time to prevent the assassination of Hartlepool, and that was entirely due to the fact that our Mr. Wilkes, a smart young fellow, thoroughly understood a triolet." So, this is sort of a weird bohemian detective tale. And I think in a way, elements of it sounded like something that would be in a Monty Python sketch. The philosophical policeman fighting crime with his knowledge of poetry. sounds insane, but the point trying to be made is that anarchism at the time, and from G.K. Chesterton's point of view, was sort of it was a crime of the mind. It was like a meme that was actually causing physical damage out in the world and disrupting society. And so it couldn't be countered with your normal policeman banging down doors and, arresting people. It needed something more. Well, as much as Syme gets on Gregory's nerves, the two of them actually hook up again later. Now, this is after Syme has assured Gregory's sister, who's very worried about her brother, that no, he's not really dangerous to anybody. It's like the anarchists, they're all talk. They don't actually do anything about it. Okay, well, kind of finds out differently. Gregory invites him to eat at his club. It's sort of a dingy little place, but it serves extremely good food. And he enjoys a little conversation with him. And then Gregory reveals something to him that he normally wouldn't. And that is that he is about to be brought up to this Central European Council of Anarchists. He's going to be elected to that to replace a member who has now left the council. And to that end, he takes, and by the way, swears him to secrecy about all this stuff. Okay. Takes him through this door. I think he had to do a special knock into this sub-basements that are the headquarters of the anarchists, and finds quite an arsenal down there. And so he's going to be voted in that night in a meeting of the local anarchists. The members of the council, there are 7, are named after the days of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, hence the man who was Thursday. Gregory is going to be elected Thursday. Okay. Well, just as the members of the council of his local council are showing up, Syme tells Gregory a secret, tells him that he is a policeman. Now, both of them have sworn on their honor not to reveal these secrets. And it puts Gregory in a bad place. I mean, these are philosophical people. They're people of the mind. That pledge of honor is really important to him. And it creates an opportunity for Syme. You see, when they all get together, this group, and Gregory starts giving his little speech for why he should be elected Thursday, he knows that there is a policeman in their midst, and he doesn't want to sound too crazy or have any of the people there sounding crazy, because even though Syme has promised not to reveal Gregory's secret, he's under no such promise about these others. He could reveal them to the police. So Gregory sort of does this, well, we anarchists we're not crazy murderers. We don't want to destroy. We're very merciful. We're very loving and all that stuff. And there, of course, the anarchists are arguing about this. Well, it looks like he's still going to probably be elected. They ask if there's anybody there who objects. And Syme objects. Now, they assume he's some anarchist from a different locality. Here's what he says. Comrades, he cried in a voice that made every man jump out of his boots. Have we come here for this? Do we live underground like rats in order to listen to talk like this? This is talk we might listen to while eating buns at a Sunday school treat. Do we line these walls with weapons and bar that door with death, lest anyone should come and hear Comrade Gregory saying to us, be good, and you will be happy? Honesty is the best policy, and virtue is its own reward? There was not a word in Comrade Gregory's address to which a curate could not have listened with pleasure. And one of the members, hear, hear. But I am not a curate. Loud cheers. And I did not listen to it with pleasure. Renewed cheers. The man who is fitted to make a good curate is not fitted to make a resolute, forcible, and efficient Thursday. Hear, hear. Comrade Gregory has told us in only too apologetic a tone that we are not the enemies of society, but I say that we are the enemies of society, and so much the worse for society. We are the enemies of society, for society is the enemy of humanity, its oldest and its most pitiless enemy. Hear, hear. Comrade Gregory has told us apologetically again that we are not murderers. There, I agree. We are not murderers. We are executioners. Cheers! And what do you think happens? The people there elect Syme to be Thursday. They have just elected a policeman to the Council of Anarchists. And that's where the story starts to unfold as we get him investigating these anarchists. We get a sort of a chase through Europe. It's really amazing. And he finds some very unlikely allies along the way to help him in this task of capturing the head of the council, the man who is called Sunday. Now, Sunday, very interesting description of him, and it becomes very important later. Let me read this to you. Then, as Syme continued to stare at them, we're talking about the rest of the council. This is at a little meeting on a patio at a very nice hotel. He saw something that he had not seen before. He had not seen it literally because it was too large to see. At the nearest end of the balcony, blocking up a great part of the perspective, was the back of a great mountain of a man. When Syme had seen him, his first thought was that the weight of him must break down the balcony of stone. His vastness did not lie only in the fact that he was abnormally tall and quite incredibly fat. This man was planned enormously in his original proportions, like a statue carved deliberately as a colossal. His head, crowned with white hair, as seen from behind, looked bigger than a head ought to be. The ears that stood out from it looked larger than human ears. He was enlarged terribly to scale, and this sense of size was so staggering that when Syme saw him, all the other figures seemed quite suddenly to dwindle and become dwarfish. They were still sitting there as before with their flowers and frock coats, but now it looked as if the big man was entertaining 5 children to tea. Again, that's actually going to be very important as this story ends. And like I said, there is some actually good mystery, some good tension, some good action to the story. Comedy for sure, but action as well. At one point, Syme gets into a duel with another anarchist, a sword duel. Let me read this to you so you get an idea of how he writes this. But while earth and sky and everything had the living beauty of a thing lost, the other half of his head was as clear as glass, and he was parrying his enemy's point with a kind of clockwork skill of which he had hardly supposed himself capable. Once his enemy's point ran along his wrist, leaving a slight streak of blood, but it either was not noticed or was tacitly ignored. Every now and then he repulsed it, and once or twice he could almost fancy that he felt his point go home. But as there was no blood on blade or shirt, he supposed he was mistaken. Then came an interruption and a change, and I won't get into what that is because I want to leave a lot of this mysterious so that you can discover it yourself. Because it would be very easy to give way too much away in this book. There are a lot of surprises. There's so much more to it than it initially seems. Why did Chesterton write this book? Well, at the time, he said he was going through a bit of confusion about what he believed. And it was like he was working things out on paper in fiction as he was trying to order things in his mind. He was still learning. Now, he would go on to write some other very fine books, including The Napoleon of Notting Hill, one of my absolute favorites. He also did the Father Brown series of mysteries, and he wrote Christian apologetics, which are quite good. And so this is him thinking not only about society and man's place in it, but much wider things as well. This is one quote that I found really interesting because it's one that still reverberates, I think, to this day. And this is something that is said between Syme and one of his allies in his venture. The poor man really has a stake in the country. The rich man hasn't. He can go away to New Guinea in a yacht. The poor have sometimes objected to being governed badly. The rich have always objected to being governed at all. Think about that in the context of even modern day politics, not just here in America, but kind of everywhere. So there is a great deal of thought and philosophy to this, and you might find it surprising. And even if it's stuff that you don't agree with, I think you will find it thought-provoking, if nothing else. And it might expand your horizons a little bit. It's quite an amazing little book, and I highly suggest you give it a look. Again, you can find it for free. Project Gutenberg, it is in the public domain. You can also find free audio versions on YouTube. I listened to one to prepare for this, and it was actually quite good. The guy did a nice job with it. The Man Who Was Thursday, A Nightmare by G.K. Chesterton from 1908. I know, that's a long time ago, but I got news for you. The truth stays the truth, no matter what year it is. There's always something to be learned from these older books, one way or another. So you might want to check this one out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you read this book? Have you read Chesterton? Do you like him? Do you hate him? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this little review, please give it a like, maybe subscribe, or share with a friend. That would be very cool. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Read a book. Read a good book. It's good for the soul, good for the mind. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.